All right, it's 10:04, and we've got some good numbers of people that have joined us already this morning. So thank you, everyone, for the time and effort to join us. My name's Alex Bond. I'm one of the directors here at PBC Hogan, and I'm ably joined by Zander van Lille, who's a member of our research team and one of our consultants as well. Of course, it's October, and so the topic of the month is safety, being Safety Month here in Australia. And one of the things that we're particularly keen to share with the audience today, which is perhaps one of the best kept secrets in the Hogan world, is the Hogan Safe System. And during the course of today, we'll share both I guess the applications in relation to the range of tools that reside within the Hogan Safe System, as well as some stories around the use cases that we've put the tools to with various clients. And Zander will share obviously some observations in respect to how personality can be used to understand safe working and safe behaviours. Let's just jump straight into it, shall we? Um, as a get-go, obviously there's two parts in terms of delivering the Hogan Safe System, and that is us, PBC, as the Australian New Zealand distributor of the Hogan suite of assessments, and a fully fledged workforce strategy, leadership and development consulting firm. The safe system and the tools that form the safe system are only part of delivering a safety project with our clients. The other part, of course, is the provision of expertise in relation to consulting services as well. Hopefully, a lot of the people that have joined us today are obviously familiar with PBC and the work that we do. Potentially, there's some new joiners as well that are perhaps getting to know us for the first time, or still early on in their relationship with us as a consulting firm. As you can see on the screen there, there's a full range of services that we offer from a consulting perspective. The firm itself has been around since 1990, and we've grown multiple fold since we started with Peter Berry, in fact, who is still in the business as a single consultant for the firm as well. Really, PBC is somewhat of an Australian success story in the sense that we developed, designed, and continue to run the Hogan 360 right here in Australia by PBC, which was then adopted globally by the Hogan organization as their global 360. So we not only have the consulting delivery, but also the technical capability in relation to assessment design and application as well. In respect to Hogan themselves, obviously there will be a lot of people on the call who are highly familiar with Hogan, but it is obviously one of the premium assessment-based solutions on the market globally. That itself has been around for a very similar sort of lifespan to us as PBC, originally founded by Bob and Wendy Hogan in the US, and was one of the very first assessments that looked at personality and behaviors in the workplace rather than sort of generalized personality models. The Hogan assessments obviously valid and reliable and offer fantastic objective insights for your workforce and candidates. We work with them across a range of scales at the individual level, at the team level and functional team level, at the cohort level, where, for example, you might be dealing with a development program, emerging managers and high potentials, perhaps a couple of examples there. And then at the organizational level, where we are working with clients to aggregate their Hogan data and to have a real understanding of how their organization is performing. Within that context, obviously it's 2024 and safety is a really important feature of the Australian corporate landscape, not only because, fundamentally, safety is a people issue and we want everybody to be able to go home safe from work, but also because safety and having a strong safety culture delivers excellent commercial outcomes as well. When we think about the reasons for safe working outside of people being able to return home safely, there are substantial costs that safety risk puts into the economy, not only in terms of directly lost lives, but also in relation to costs and claims and time and productivity loss as well. You'll see some stats up there on the screen that come from Safe Work Australia for 2024, reflecting the 2023 year, which outlines some of the costs associated with unsafe work practices. On the flip side of unsafe work practices, what we do know is that organisations that have strong safety cultures and are effective in managing safety both deliver higher levels of customer satisfaction and increased sales, but over time can demonstrate long-term valuations in their businesses as well. So there is a link between what we would call as the core part of our practice, good quality leadership, safety outcomes, and commercial business outcomes, and being able to drive higher valuations for businesses over time. How then does consciously thinking about safety and evaluating candidates and individuals within a business and the safety climate come into play when we think about driving these valuations? Xander, if we can just move on to the next slide. What we'll have a quick look at before we dive into the safety system is exactly that point. Xander will take us through lifting the lid, if you will, on understanding how personality characteristics and safety combine. Xander?
Fantastic. Thank you, Alex. So conventional wisdom is still true. A focus on providing people with the appropriate knowledge and skills for education, using the relevant equipment, and following relevant safety protocols are important. But at the end of the day, it's somebody that needs to implement those. It's people's perceptions about whether the relevant job knowledge and skills are important. That still matters. The emotional experiences they have and that they display while confronting safety issues, and whether they will demonstrate behavior that align with safety regulations that are important. And this is exactly where personality come in, that predicts the likelihood that people will align with those existing tools, mechanisms, rules that we have in place. So just to give you an orientation about how a personality links up to safety behavior, we're going to focus on the bright side of personality first, measured by the Hogan Personality Inventory. With bright side, we mean those normal day-to-day behaviors when people are at their best. And a lot of the findings displayed here come from research that Hogan has conducted, but also been verified through a lot of other studies that have been conducted on the well-known 5-factor model of personality as well. And so with the first scale, what we do see is with individuals who are higher on prudence, they typically tend to be more rule following and think about the consequences of their actions. And as a consequence, a lower score might be related to not always thinking through the consequences of one's actions, or sticking with rules that could have negative consequences and lead to unsafe behavior. Higher adjustment is typically associated with handling stress well, maintaining your composure when faced with difficult situations, making effective decisions when under pressure. And if that is in the lower range, somebody might be more inclined to panic when under pressure, not make effective decisions or maintain their composure. That could be dangerous in highly tense critical safety incidents. We also see that interpersonal sensitivity plays an important role in demonstrating safety-related behaviors, where individuals who are lower on interpersonal sensitivity don't always think about the negative implications of what they do on other people, and might not be aware of how not following certain safety protocols might negatively impact those working along with them. Sociability, interestingly, here we do see that high sociability tends to be correlated with unsafe behavior, and it is because extroverts might be more inclined to enjoy fun-like type of activities, external stimulation, which could lead to a bit of distractibility and not always being focused on the key safety-related behaviors that needs to be demonstrated in the role. We also have what is referred to as a dark side personality that also links up to unsafe behavior. Dark side typically speak about those typical derailers that occur when we're under pressure, when we let our guard down, or when we're bored and not paying attention. And with derailers, or those type of behaviors that undermine our performance when we're at work. And so the first derailer, the logical brother of the high excitable scale, is obviously that low adjustment that we've spoken about earlier. Individuals that are high and excitable when under pressure might be more inclined to lose their temper and overreact to situations, which could impact their ability to effectuate safety-related decisions in highly stressful situations. High mischievous, that's the inverse, or almost we often see that high mischievous has a negative relationship with that prudence scale that I've mentioned earlier. These individuals, when they've become a bit bored or let their guards down, might enjoy pushing the limits, taking risks, might also be a little bit impulsive, jumping quickly without thinking about the consequences, which could all increase unsafe type of behaviors in a role. They might also sometimes be very charming, but smooth over possible safety-related mistakes that have been made in the past and not take accountability for those mistakes made. We see that high colorful, and this often accompanies a high sociability score, that these individuals could also sometimes be a bit attention-seeking, draw a bit too much attention to themselves. We often also see that they display a lot of frenetic energy, a lot of behaviors, but not always focused on the immediate things that need to be achieved, or focusing on addressing safety-related specific task at hand. The third part, values, also plays a really important role in predicting whether somebody is going to engage in safety-related behaviors. Interestingly, both a value for a fun type of work environment and a need to be work in a tight-knit team type of context where there's a frequent opportunity to engage with others are both related. High scores on both of those values are typically related to unsafe behavior. It does seem, and if you think about that high sociability and high colorful, which are also linked to some of these dimensions, it does seem that the introverted killjoys are sometimes those individuals that might display more safety-related behavior. Of course, low security, security being associated with a low security being associated with tolerance for ambiguity, and also a bit of limit testing there. They might also take more risks, and so a lower preference for a security environment might also be associated with an inclination to take more risks and demonstrate more unsafe behaviors. And the same with tradition. Tradition is associated with an appreciation for upholding social norms, staying adhering to rules, and we do see that lower tradition, or less of a preference for rules or challenging established procedures, and sometimes being a bit more unpredictable in behavior, could be associated with unsafe behaviors too. Both the information shared on the HTS and on the MVPI and how they relate to safety profile was based on a study that was conducted by a well-known scholar with the name of Adrian Furnham, and he's got a fantastic Google profile if you want to have a look at that further. So we'd also like to provide a few case studies just to give you a sense of what the outcome associated with some of the personality characteristics mentioned earlier could look like. The first example is a freight company, and what was found is that with individuals who are more inclined to panic, or especially likely to be involved in accidents, we found that employees, and this was if it was coupled with 3 or more years of experience, who obtained above average scores from a safety perspective reported 50 fewer major accidents. And so that could be especially related in this example to some of that higher adjustment type of behaviors that are displayed. In the manufacturing context, individuals, if you think about that distracted risk taker title, this is more in that domain of that high sociability, being a bit sometimes distracted, and lower prudence, perhaps being inclined to take more risks. Found that individuals with below average scores was especially likely to file more workers' compensation claims. This was in the manufacturing context. And with the volatile rule breakers, that volatile suggesting again a bit of that lower adjustment mentioned previously, that rule breakers again lower prudence too. This was also in the freight transportation context, and found that those with below average safety scores were 4 times more likely to be injured on the job. Just displaying the importance of how that day-to-day behavior are really predictive of safety-related incidents. We're providing a reorientation around the safe system and the roadmap, and Alex will situate us in the roadmap where we're currently at, and the next focus areas.
Thanks, Zander. So some good explanations there in relation to the characteristics of personality that present as higher risk factors in respect to safe work and safe work behaviours, as well as some examples of how those things can come out to play and be measured and understood in constructing a workforce that reduces the risk factors around incidents at work and lost time injuries and those sorts of impacts. In response to that, we as an organisation, together with Hogan, started to think about how you would actually lean into that space in respect to being able to measure and understand safe working behaviours. And we've done that across 3 levels. So what we have on screen here, which is a little bit of an eyeful to start with, but I'll step us through it from right to left. So where we start in terms of the safe system is what we call the Hogan Safety Report. And that's essentially a selection tool that's used to be able to understand the likelihood of safety risk or the level of safety risk that an individual presents during the selection exercise. The genesis actually of the safety report, and we'll come to it in more detail in just a moment. Zander will take us through each of the different elements of the safe system. But the genesis of the Hogan Safety Report was a very large mining company that we did work with, and they'd had multiple fatalities on site. And the question was, how do we, and what they'd identified was that those fatalities were as a cause of mixed populations in their workforce. And by that, I mean they had subcontractors coming onto site. There was differences in safety culture. And what they wanted to understand was the risk profile of subcontractors coming onto site, how they might then manage or train those subcontractors to reduce the risk, or how they might avoid the risk entirely by opting out of working with those subcontractors. And so the Hogan Safety Report was born to be able to allow that sort of understanding of people coming into an organization or coming onto site that you might work with. So that's the individual level risk profile in the frame. The other aspects that we will also look at is safety leadership, in terms of that element of setting the tone around safety. And setting those expectations within the organisation and modelling appropriate behaviours from a safe working perspective as well. In that regard, what we look at there is a 360 style approach, and there are two differing potential approaches in relation to assessing safety behaviours from a 360 perspective. One is to use the core Hogan 360, which provides you with a generalized view of leadership capability, but then paired with a select number of additional items from the additional item banks that exist around safety leadership. And so being able to have a specific lens looking at safety and attitudes and behaviors and safety leadership as well. We think that's a valid approach in the sense that what we demonstrated earlier was that indication that well-led organizations are also safer organizations, but then being able to apply the overlay of those specific safety items as well. The alternative to that is the specific Safety 360, which has been built and designed specifically with safety behaviors in mind, and doesn't offer that generalized view of leadership capability alongside the mechanics of that tool. So two options there to look at sort of that level of safety leadership in an organization. And so you might consider populations like site leaders, shift leaders, supervisors, superintendents, that sort of layer in organization for the application of a 360 style approach in respect of safety leadership. The third sort of line of defense, if you will, from a safe system perspective, and offering a much broader base of insight to an organization's safety culture, is the safety climate survey. And that is, as you would expect, from the name of the exercise and the tool itself, it's a broad-based survey that goes out to the whole of organization and is able to be segmented across business units and a whole range of various different demographics that can be taken into account. So if you think about it from a systemic perspective, what we're able to offer with those sort of collection of different tools is that view around individualized safety risk, the tone from the top in terms of safety culture and safety leadership, and then that much broader based view and perspective of what is the safety climate within the organization like. We'll get into some more detail around each of those specific tools in a moment. But just to share a view on the next slide around the various applications of each of the different tools in terms of different contexts. And so this taxonomy essentially presents us with the various job levels that you might apply the different tools across, as well as the different contexts being selection, development, from an organizational and analytics perspective as well. A couple of other things to highlight on there that I didn't touch on in respective the SAFE system. One is a custom competency report, and that is in essence where the safety report itself started life, in the sense that we looked at a specific use case in relation to safety and then worked with the client to develop a tool that measured specific safety characteristics within their context. Similarly, you'll see another report on there, which is the transport driver report, which again started life as a custom competency report, but looks specifically at those behaviours and risk factors in respect of transport drivers, long and short haul drivers. One example of that style of custom work, we deliver safety insight specifically in the selection space to a particular public transport operator, and their underlying aim of undertaking a safety assessment for selection of their transport drivers was that their work cover claims were a significant cost on the business. And what they understood in relation to their driver population was that the claims were being made around stress and resilience aspects of personality. And so they were looking for being able to assess for potential drivers or driver candidates that had much higher levels of resilience within their personal profiles, which we're then able to look for with the end game being to sort of reduce those work cover claims over time by way of building a more resilient workforce. Coming then to why you would look to apply safe system assessments across your business and some of the benefits that might return. What you're obviously looking at is that fundamental question of building a stronger safety culture and understanding of what creates a safe working environment from an individual perspective based on the choices that we all make in terms of personal risk taking within the workplace. Obviously, that value and impact of leadership in being able to create and support safe working environment and a safety culture, really being able to target candidates that have higher propensities for safe working or lower risk profiles in relation to safe working within your organization, to manage that risk down over time. Obviously, one of the things we touched on earlier is that aspect of being able to boost productivity, as well as more generalized valuations and customer satisfaction, that a safe workplace drives and underpins. And then obviously the ability to, as safe working, as with any other capability, is coachable, and it starts with that element of understanding what perhaps your personal risk profile is. One of the aspects, and Xander will touch on this as we get into the safety report in just a minute, that's highlighted in the safety report is coachability, and whether or not candidates can actually take coaching around safe working behaviours. So Xander will dive into the safety report just now.
Right. So, really like what Alex said, that we know that personality is not fate. And so, if people are aware of certain inclinations, they can effectively self-manage around that from through coaching in order to to deliberately demonstrate, or through deliberate practice demonstrate more safety-related behaviors. So with the Hogan Safety Report is based on the bright side of personality mentioned previously, the Hogan Personality Inventory, and it focuses on 6 broad areas specifically related to the demonstration of safety behaviors. And so the first dimension, that defined compliant dimension, reflects the degree to which somebody is likely to follow the associated rules and regulations around safety in an organization. That strong dimension, whether somebody would, when they're under pressure, be able to remain calm, composed, make effective decisions in those situations. Poised reflects the degree to which somebody, when in a critical sort of safety incident, are able to project that confidence, assuredness to get through such a situation. That a vigilance scale reflects the degree to which somebody might be aware of possible safety-related risks that could occur, and might be able to really stay focused, not be distracted or divert their attention away from the immediate matter that needs to be handled. There's also the cautious scale, which is reflected in the degree to which somebody might be able to make be more deliberate in the decisions that they make, to think about the possible consequences of their actions, and the safety-related risks of their decisions on other people. And then, of course, there's an important element of understanding whether somebody is coachable, open to potential feedback, whether they would demonstrate that humility to be trained further from a safety perspective. And it's also quite valuable to get a sense of whether people would be open to advice and like to learn from others. So the safety report is divided into 3 broad sections, and it first unpacks those specific safety-related behaviors that we've just mentioned, those 6 components, providing you with a breakdown of those scores for the individual. It also provides invaluable information in the second section, that magic number, that overall safety score that a person can use to compare themselves to others. And then with the third section, provides invaluable development suggestions or specific areas, components that a person could focus on in order to deliberately practice or display more of those safety-related behaviors at work. Alex also beautifully unpacked and mentioned the transport driver report previously. That started off as a more custom type of solution, but has become a report available. And with the transport report, we do see that personality is a really important predictor for both short haul and long haul drivers. It also has implications for tram drivers too. And those individuals who are more inclined to maintain their composure, deal with that stress, adhere to rules, think about the consequences of other people, of their actions on other people on the road, are less inclined to get involved in accidents or fewer lower at risk of getting traffic or violating traffic rules.
Just to expand on that, Zander, I mean, there's other obvious cost and productivity implications that we can think of in terms of deliveries on time, trucks being off the road, not being able to meet contractual obligations. Then of course there's other elements in terms of wear and tear on the vehicles as well, and reduced maintenance costs that come with lower risk or safer working behaviors as well. So there's a whole myriad of sort of flow-on effects that outside of the immediate safety elements themselves that help support all of those sort of more positive outcomes that we described that organizations have when they've got a fantastic safety culture.
Excellent. Yeah,
so that's a little summary of the Hogan Safety Report piece, and an example of one of the specialist reports that fits alongside it in terms of specialist workforces and the opportunity then to also build custom solutions that exist in relation to various aspects of safety that you might want to explore depending on specific roles. The next sort of piece that we're going to go into is sort of looking at that safety leadership element around the 360 style approach that we touched on, whether it's core Hogan 360 plus the safety item bank, or whether it's the specific safety 360 design tool itself. Before we do that, just sort of going into a little bit around unpacking that point that positive and good quality leadership within an organization does have a direct impact on safety outcomes. And we're fortunate enough that we're the global 360 provider to a very large, let's call them a very large multinational petrochemical company. I'll let you feel free to play along from home and insert whichever name here, but we're the global 360 provider, and they have over 80,000 employees across 70 different countries. One of their baseline requirements of all of their people leaders is that they will undertake an annual 360, and with an expectation that their 360 results are as good as, if not better than they were in the prior year. So a really proactive organization around measuring leadership capability and firmly establishing the expectation that quality leadership is something that they expect within their organization of their leaders, and being able to offer that as part of the experience to staff and team members more broadly. We introduced the Hogan 360 with some minor amendments and changes to it. And what we see, if we can just skip straight forward to slide 28, Zander, what we can see from the implementation of that really focused activity around leadership and leadership quality, we're fortunate that they as an organization gather a whole range of other data that is then analyzed alongside the 360 data. And what we saw as the leadership scores and quality improved, it was very much in line with one of our core philosophies, which is that leadership drives engagement and engagement drives performance. So really that aspect of setting the tone from the top culturally around performance. In respect to safety performance in particular, what we saw, obviously, we can see some of those statistics on the screen there. Decreases in total number of accidents, decreases in containment incidents or environmental impact incidents, recordable cases of across hours worked, decreasing as well from a lost time injury perspective, and then also reduced similar reduced measures in absenteeism, and then the positive correlations that we touched on earlier in respect of sales and customer satisfaction. So fundamentally, the evidence suggests and the data supports it that a well-led organization with a healthy focus on safety that creates a positive safety climate results in positive and more productive workplaces, more competitive workplaces in the market. Stepping then particularly into some of those 360 solutions, we'll look first at the core Hogan 360 plus the safety item bank. We've got those outlined there on the right hand of the slide, and I'll let Zander. I'll just talk to those really briefly. So a lot of you on the call might be familiar on that left hand side with the core Hogan 360 model in terms of what that looks at as a tool in particular. So the two sort of people-based and relational-based aspects on that top left-hand side is self-management. How does the leader manage themselves and their emotions in the workplace? The right-hand side is relationship management in terms of engagement with peers, stakeholders, colleagues, direct reports, and those sort of relational aspects of managing teams and the work that the organization needs to get done. The bottom half of the model, again, which hopefully a number of you are familiar with, looks at tactical versus strategic. So that left-hand side is the aspect of working in the business, in terms of getting those things done that your role is in place to ensure happen. And then on the right-hand side, thinking through, those strategic aspects of the business. So the model itself, if you divide it left and right, looks at sort of management aspects, and then strategic and productive aspects on the right-hand side. Over here on the hard right, these are the items that we introduce from a safety leadership perspective, and they're awfully small, so I might read some of them out for you. So there's a collection of items that look at safety role model. So is this person demonstrating and sort of living those safety values that the organization might expect of their leaders, and setting a good example. There's a second category that looks at the person's commitment to safety. So, when safety incidents are observed, is then action taken and things like that from a practical perspective. Then finally, we look at the culture that the person sets within their team or their remit of management. And for example, the person puts safety concerns ahead of productivity concerns. How seriously do they actually take this? And are they setting a culture of safety and an expectation of safe working within their team, not just paying lip service to that? Moving on then to the Safety 360 itself. There's sort of a different model at play here outside of the generalized leadership model that we touched on earlier, and we look at 11 specific safety competencies in relation to this model. Again, apologies for the slide we're now on reflection being somewhat small, but there's 5 key themes that we look at. One is the safety leadership that the individual projects, and which is the collective of the overall results of a Safety 360. And then we look across those 4 key facets, being safety culture, safe work practices, health and the environment, and then the safety knowledge of the individual as well, which is actually a really important piece of the puzzle, in the sense that, does the person have the understanding and the tools at their fingertips to be able to actually drive positive safety outcomes and support their people to work in safe ways. So what you'll see on that right-hand side then is the breakdown of those of those 11 safety competencies that I mentioned just earlier within the frame of those 5 themes on that left-hand side. And looking at things like communication in relation to setting of safety culture and what their generalized safety attitude presents as. Do they present a positive or a dim view towards safety? Are they serious about safety in the way that they present that to their teams? In respect of safety leadership, how do we see that person respond? Perhaps in times of crisis or when there is a safety incident, but then also outside of those times more generally around leading positive attitudes towards safe working. Similarly, safe work practices, does that person bear in mind that equipment to be safe and for their teams to work safely, is that available to them? And then similarly, are there acknowledged and appropriate policies and procedures in place in relation to safe working? And so really testing our leaders around all aspects of creating a safe work environment, both from a process and policy perspective, but also role modeling, setting the tone from the top in relation to safety management and expectations of their people as well. The Safety 360, one of the outputs, as it is with the core Hogan 360, looks very closely at then being able to put these things or this insight into action. And part of that is, the inclusion of recommendations for an immediate action plan and working with the candidates through a debrief of their assessment profile as well. So 2 examples there of different ways of looking at your leaders within a business. Again, that sort of layer in the organization, perhaps shift leaders, site leaders, superintendents, those sorts of roles. Zander, now we're going to move on and take a look at the rest of the SAFE system. We've talked about obviously the safety report at an individual level. We've talked about the Safety 360, the core Hogan 360, and adding to it the safe leadership items. And you'll recall very early on we talked about the broader perspective on safety culture with an organisation, which is where we use the safety climate survey, which we'll dive into a little bit of a high level overview now. So again, like a 360 style exercise, safety climate survey is an anonymous exercise that you would roll out across your organisation. I'm into cycle 3, for example, of delivering safety climate survey for a health organisation, a distributed health organisation that works across multiple sites. We roll a survey out to all of their staff every 2 years and seek their input and feedback in relation to the 10 safety themes that you see there on screen, which include things like management's attitudes towards safety, my immediate supervisor's attitude towards safety. Are we a compliance versus commitment type environment? Do we have access to the appropriate equipment and training to prioritize safe working? What are my observations in relation to our safety culture more generally? What are my perspectives on my attitudes towards safety? And then how do we look at, what's our perspective on that overall company engagement and attitude towards safety more broadly? As I indicated earlier, we then look at working through with the client around how do we want to break down that sort of overarching view of an organization and their safety climate. And we work with clients to identify multiple demographic elements that they might want to look at, whether it's by site, whether it's by length of service, whether it's, for example, by gender in particular environments as well, to really get a sense of where there's potential safety risks emerging within an organization. One of the really important aspects of the safety climate survey is the ability for qualitative feedback as well. And often that's where we'll get some very, very specific call outs and recommendations under that sort of cover of anonymity in respect to tips around where safety risk is presenting within an organization. There is, of course, the ability to customize some of the questions within the safety climate survey, as well as what you can see on the right-hand side of this slide, those results being benchmarked against other organizations that have undertaken the safety climate survey as well, and including being able to compare year-on-year results for an organization as well. An example of some of the things that can come out of the safety climate survey in working with the client that I referenced just earlier, two examples. One was very specific safety concerns at a particular site that the WHS function was then able to engage with site leadership on unpacking and exploring those concerns to greater detail, and then being able to put remediation plans in place. The other point of observation which came out, which has then had some substantial work being done on it, was a very clear distinction between management's perspective on the safety climate survey versus frontline staff's perspective on the safety climate in the organisation, which demonstrated a very real disconnect between where management thought they were in respect of safety versus where frontline staff working in the business held their views in respect of how the organisation was set up for safe working. Of course, the upshot is being able to understand that and then being able to have the management team take steps to unpack and explore frontline staff's concerns to a greater extent, and be able to put interventions in place to support a safe working environment as well. So I'm just going to pause there in respect of the safety climate survey and come back again to, I guess, the safe system roadmap. And hopefully there's a good understanding of what we've shared with you today across the different components that make up the Hogan Safe system and how they actually can interact to sort of create that overall uplift across the organisation in respect to understanding safe working, de-risking poor safety behaviours, and being able to boost safety leadership within an organisation to drive broader commercial outcomes. So we're at 10:51. I think we're just going to pause there and perhaps open up to questions for those people still on the call. Xander, is there anything that you'd like to add just to round us out as well before we open for questions?
I really like the way you address the safety climate survey. Almost sometimes also think of it as a lever that if somebody's got the personality inclination to display certain safety-related behaviors, you can almost think of evaluating that you're in a favorable type of environment that encourages safety would increase the likelihood that you'll put your personality into action in the work context.
The other opportunity in respect of the safety climate survey, just while we're on it, is effectively in the same way that you might use an employee engagement survey as that sort of positive correlative measure for effective safety leadership within the organisation. So what we'll often see is organisations pairing, for example, that 360 exercise across their frontline leadership cohort, and then undertaking that sort of bottom-up safety climate survey as the sort of the lag indicator of are we getting the response to that safety leadership investment that we're making? Are we getting that lag indicator response in the uptick in sort of safety climate survey scoring, for example? Questions? For many subcontractors, English is not their first language, or they don't have high literacy. How do they go with answering the assessment questions? Great question. Xander, do you want to take that, or do you want me to address that?
we have say for example, the Hogan personality inventory is we've got several languages that the report or that the assessment can be completed in. I think it's just over 40, and we have a full language matrix of all the languages that it can be completed in, and that the information can be reported on. So we certainly can accommodate different language preferences.
And the other half of the question was in respect to literacy, and all of the Hogan assessments were designed at a sort of a primary school level readership ability, literacy ability, in the sense of the question design and simplicity of language and those sorts of things for people to be able to engage with those in a meaningful way. Of course, where there are, sort of other limitations on a person's ability to take the assessments, there are also reasonable adjustments that we're able to offer for people to be able to access and undertake the assessment exercise as well. I do have a global client that works with the safety report at scale, and in the sense that as an organization culturally, they have put safety as a key requirement of their workforce, and irrespective of role level, any recruitment exercise undertakes a safety report for them to be able to understand safety risks, but equally they've made the decision around thresholds below which or above which they won't continue someone's candidacy in a role. They're actually going through the exercise at the moment of working with that aggregate data set. So we're talking in the thousands of profiles per year for this organization. They're in the process at the moment of working with that aggregate data set to really track what that impact in relation to lost time injuries and various other safety measures has been, to be able to validate the strategy that they've taken around it.
We've got a few direct questions that I can jump in with if you'd like.
Sure.
So first one's around the broad safe system approach. Based on your experience, which component of the Hogan safe system would you recommend organizations begin with? And is there an optimal sequence for implementing the components to maximize the effectiveness of them?
It's a good question, and perhaps in true consulting style, my response would be it depends. And what do I mean by that? I think the most direct impact is, in my view at least, is in relation to that safety leadership aspect, and really looking at the core people within your organization that are responsible for maintaining and driving safety culture. And so that's a really sort of proactive version, and perhaps that reflects my personality more than anything in terms of where I would want to start, would be with those sort of key safety leadership cohorts within an organization. Both, in my view at least, both the safety report and the safety climate survey are in some ways, sort of lag indicators in respect of safe outcomes. The benefits that you will see from those will be later on down the track, relative to the benefits that you would see from undertaking a safety leadership 360 exercise with cohorts within the organization.
Perfect. There's another one here on the Hogan Safety Report. So you mentioned the Hogan Safety Report is utilised for selection. Can it also be used for development and coaching?
Absolutely, there is specific development recommendations as a third part of the report that could be included if you want, that provides development recommendations. And of course, personality is not fate. People can self-manage, even those personality provides a sense of the likely behaviors that somebody's going to display. They can be coached to self-manage around those highlighted in the Hogan Safety Report in order to be more effective.
Thanks, Xander. Another one on the safety report as well is, can Hogan provide case studies or ROI data that demonstrate the effectiveness of the safety report across different industries?
There's tons. Sorry, Alex.
No, you go, Xander.
We've got a large bibliography of several studies across industries that I mean, it'd be impossible to unpack it now, but there is a lot that we could leverage and provide. If you're welcome to reach out, and we'd be happy to share peer-reviewed published articles on the topics or ROI case studies that might be of value.
Perfect. And one last one was just around the assessment data that the safety report is generated from. Which Hogan assessment is utilised in the generation of that Hogan safety report?
That would be the Hogan Personality Inventory, the bright side measure of personality.
Perfect. That's all the questions I have from my side, unless there's any more from the chat.
Thanks, Elliot. Appreciate your moderation there, and obviously appreciate everyone's questions as well, and interest in unpacking a little bit more around the Hogan Safe system. If you've got any other questions, of course, that you want to ask of either Xander or myself or any of the PBC Hogan team, please feel free to be in touch. Thank you very much for your time in terms of setting aside the time to come and join us this morning, and safe working, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.